Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.
The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, where we believe that everyone is creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone.
I'm Laura Camian.
And I'm Susan Blackwell. If you're an OG listener, welcome back, Sparkly.
Mm-hmm.
If you're joining us for the first time, know that all are welcome here.
Whether you have put your creativity on pause during this time or you've clung to it like a lifeline, welcome.
But you may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File? Where do I get one? What do I file in it? These are such good questions, and we actually do have answers.
We do. A Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all your inspirations and fascinations.
Here's the deal. We are makers who make all kinds of things.
If you're like us and you're making stuff all the time or want to be making stuff all the time, you know the wellspring of inspiration can run a little dry, especially now.
But don't despair. We are on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity, things that inspire us to get up off of our asses and make things like this podcast.
Or an intentional practice of bestowing our attention on worthy subjects.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Or a different way of thinking about time to increase ease and creativity.
Yeah, I like it. Every episode we're going to, also I was going to burp there. So every episode we're going to reach into the Spark File and exchange some sparks. And from time to time, we're going to talk to some folks who spark us too.
And if you're not careful, you might just change your life. So without further ado, let's open up the
Spark File.
Carry on.
Blackwell.
Hi, I'm so happy to see you /hear you /podcast with you.
Should we say to people we're using this Zencaster now with the video component? It's very exciting because we have done many where we only hear each other's voices, but now I get to see your pretty face.
Drink it in. It's nice.
Did everyone just take that pause to just picture Susan's pretty face?
What's going on? We've both been working all day long. This recording session comes at the end of a day that has already contained so much talking.
So much talking.
Let's have more talking.
So much talking. Let's talk some more.
But you know what? As always, this becomes my dessert.
I know.
Whenever we do it, do we do it on a Sunday morning? Do we do it on a Saturday night? Whenever we do it, I'm always...
Friday morning at 7 a.m.
Friday morning at 7 a.m. Then it's my pre-dessert. But I just love it. It makes me happy.
It is a delight. Yeah, me too.
Any news to report, or shall we just dive in?
I say we dive into these sparks. Mine's a little meaty.
All right. Mine is meaty too. I think we should go for it. Let's do this.
Okay, we're going to have a full meal tonight, folks. Suze, a few weeks ago, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I did a spark where I mentioned that phenomenon that many of us experience of like not being able to slow down despite our desire to.
Yes.
And if you recall, I talked about Brené Brown's theory that our addiction to busyness is a numbing strategy, and it can keep us from feeling the feelings or pursuing the dreams that we're too afraid to pursue. As she put it, we are a culture of people who've bought into the idea that if we stay busy enough, the truth of our lives won't catch up with us.
Can I just jump in here and say,
Yeah.
I think once again, we have accidentally crafted perfect companion sparks unwittingly.
No way.
Or we're about to do the same spark to each other and back at each other, but one or the other. I'm so stoked.
I'm interested. Well, this is my jumping off place, so we'll see where we go from here.
Okay.
But they might relate. We'll see. We'll check. We'll
love
check
this.
back
Okay,
in.
I'm excited.
So, I was still thinking about that, and that I guess that addiction and the numbing, etc. And come to find out, I learned that as much as we might think that this is a modern problem, as far as we can tell, this idea has been around for centuries.
Really?
Yes. Let me tell you a couple examples. In 1877, Robert Louis Stevenson called busyness a, quote, symptom of deficient vitality and observed, quote, a sort of dead alive, hackney-eyed people about who are scarcely conscious of living except in the exercise of some conventional occupation.
Ugh.
And even Seneca, the Roman philosopher, Suze, who
Yeah.
was born in the year 4 BC. 4 BC. He wrote in his book On the Shortness of Life, look back in memory and consider how many have robbed you of life when you were not aware of what you were losing. How much was taken up in useless sorrow, in foolish joy, in greedy desire, in the allurements of society. How little of yourself was left to you. You will perceive that you are dying before your season.
Ugh.
So I became aware of this, the fact that this busyness is not a new phenomenon last summer, a few months into the pandemic, when I picked up a book called How to Do Nothing, Resisting the Attention Economy by Jenny Odell. And to be honest, Suze, I might have mentioned this to you even back then. When it was first recommended to me, I thought, yeah, of course. Like, I need to slow down. I know I've certainly been called to workaholic in my life.
Yes.
But I kind of wondered, okay, is this a book about like how to make fewer to-do lists and how to breathe and be more zen? And I have a few of those books on my bookshelf already. And honestly, like, I get the concept, but it always felt a little oversimplified, to be honest. And I think I felt a little silly, frankly, reading a book telling me how to just sit and be with myself. But in retrospect, I don't think those books are really oversimplified. I just think they're antiquated because while the addiction to busyness has been around for apparently all of human civilization, we have become more conscious of the connection between our busyness and the power structures at play in our modern lives. Who has benefited from our overworking? Who benefits when our value as humans is determined only by our productivity? How many times have we heard as artists the question, are you going to make any money from that? Like, can you make a living from that?
Yeah.
Because our culture does not value taking time for thought, reflection, connection to nature, art itself, unless a profit can be made from it by you or someone else. So Jenny Odell writes, solitude, observation, and simple conviviality should be recognized not only as an ends in and of themselves, but inalienable rights belonging to anyone lucky enough to be alive. Damn right. I found myself thinking like, yeah, I'm going to structure my life so that I have quiet downtime, creative time, time for transcendent thought. Well,
how's it going, Cams?
So good. So good.
Oh, God.
The pull to make more money or to prove our value is very, very strong. It's very strong.
Yeah.
In fact, the forces at play that are intentionally working to pull our attention away from ourselves are greater than they ever have been in human history. And the stakes have never been higher. That might sound dramatic, but trust me, it's true. In chapter 1 of How to Do Nothing, which, by the way, turned out to be nothing at all about being Zen, Jenny Odell describes the irony that a book called How to Do Nothing is really an action plan. She says, a simple refusal motivates my argument. Refusal to believe that the present time and place and the people who are here with us are somehow not enough. I was floored by that because that argument is so simple and sown like throughout the whole book that she, like, if we just stop and say, wait, I refuse to believe that where I am right now, who I am right now, the people I'm with right now are not enough. She's very clear that the nothing she proposes doing is only nothing from the point of view of capitalist productivity. She's not suggesting that we drop out completely of capitalist society. She says the point of doing nothing, as I define it, isn't to return to work refreshed and ready to be more productive, but rather to question what we currently perceive as productive. She's advocating that we become more aware of where we put our attention. Yes, we can and should make money. No harm in making lots of money. But making money is not the only reason we exist. We exist to live, to dream, to create, to connect, to observe, to marvel, to wonder, to feel. And many of those things do not generate income, but they are still valuable and worthy of our time on this earth. This might not come as a surprise to you, Suze, but at the risk of revealing even more of my dorkiness, I will admit that sometimes I give a lot of thought. Like maybe, I might fantasize about what it was like to live in the 1700s or the 1800s.
Of course you do. Oh my God.
I do. Total nerd
Anybody
bag.
who's heard this podcast before is like, yeah.
Yeah, we know. But when I fantasized that like people were reading books, being out in nature and drawing or painting what they saw, they would learn a musical instrument and play for their family members in the evening because that is the only way you were going to hear music in your lifetime.
Yeah.
You might read aloud to each other as a family. There was no passive like watching of TV. There were ways to engage your brain and engage with each other. And as I've mentioned before, there was a point during this pandemic where my stress was through the roof.
Yeah.
I was working nonstop. And despite that, I did the unthinkable. I insisted on an hour a day to go for a long walk.
Yes.
And I truly believe it saved my life. I think I've mentioned that. Like, I listened to books and podcasts. I walked for miles just viewing grass and trees and water and birds.
And picking wildflowers to press in your books.
And looking for Mr. Darcy over the next hill. No, I did though. I just walked and walked. And I made... To be honest, I made sure I wasn't listening to anything that was related to work. It was not related to self-improvement. It was not related to anything except where I wanted my mind to wander.
Remind me, I think you've said this before, but what were you listening to?
I listened to this whole series of like Sherlock Holmes from a female point of view.
That's right.
It was like these like complex murder mysteries solved by this delightful woman in, late 1800s. And I mean,
This
it was so truly
Absolutely. Yes.
Totally outside of this realm of what's happening in this world right now. And then like when I was working, or if Wes and I did a puzzle together, we'd add classical music. And I'm so not an expert on anything. Like I know, like I'm familiar with some classical music songs. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty. Oh, I know this one. But I don't like beyond that. I didn't study it in any way.
Totally.
But when we're listening to it, or when I have it on when I'm working, I can literally feel my brain working in a different way and engaging in a different way. I feel my body relaxing. And I think these things sort of primed me to be ready to receive the message that Jenny Odell was sending. This book was really about first disengaging from the attention economy and then allowing ourselves and encouraging ourselves to re-engage with something else. Odell says, I suggest that we withdraw our attention and use it instead to restore the biological and cultural ecosystems where we forge meaningful identities, both individual and collective. Part of what this book does is make a case for why doing nothing is significant. There's many, many reasons, but you'll have to read the book to soak it all in. And it's not a super light read. I'll say that. It was jam-packed. And my Spark is only going to cover pretty much chapter 1 because there's so much. But she writes, in a passage from Negotiations, Jill Deleuze wrote, we're riddled with pointless talk, insane quantities of words and images. Stupidity's never blind or mute. So not a problem of getting people to express themselves, but of providing little gaps of solitude and silence in which they might eventually find something to say. Repressive forces don't stop people expressing themselves, but rather force them to express themselves. What a relief to have nothing to say, the right to say nothing, because only then is there a chance of framing the rare and even rarer thing that might be worth saying. He wrote that in 1985, before the internet, before social media.
Oh my
Can
God.
you imagine what he would think of life now?
Oh my God. Wow.
Right? As Jenny Odell says, the function of nothing here, of saying nothing, is that it is a precursor to having something to say. Nothing is neither a luxury nor a waste of time, but rather a necessary part of meaningful thought and speech. This really struck me because I've been feeling a sense lately that we all have to speak and we have to do it quickly, and we don't seem to have any patience enough for a thought to form or for multiple perspectives to be considered. Now that we have social media and the news cycle is 24/7, thoughts are expected to be shared and shared quickly. We don't seem to live in an era where we value the need to consider and reflect before speaking.
Yeah.
We all have a soapbox we can step on at any moment, but everything seems to get equal weight. I mean, we're all on soapboxes, but it's like a proclamation about one person's love for or hatred of avocados is broadcast as equal in importance to another person's declaration against abuse or injustice. That is one thing that I find maddening about social media, and my brain just jumps around between these topics and they're not equivalent. And yet somehow they're like occupying similar amounts of space and time.
Yep.
Odell says, I hope that the figure of doing nothing in opposition to a productivity-obsessed environment can help restore individuals who can then help restore communities, human and beyond. And most of all, I hope it can help people find ways of connecting that are substantive, sustaining, and absolutely unprofitable to corporations whose metrics and algorithms have never belonged in the conversations we have about our thoughts, our feelings, and our survival. She really is talking about the life-changing, revolutionary potential of taking back our attention. This book made me think more than anything about my own responsibility and my own power regarding my attention and who I choose to give it to. Rather than just responding to the latest headline or the social post or digital ad, can I live in a more conscious way, giving my attention to the things that I say matter most to me? Well, there's many reasons why that's challenging, but the biggest reason is something I hope we're all aware of by now, and that is that the cards are stacked against us. No one profits from us taking a walk in nature and becoming better observers.
Oh my God.
No one makes money off of a long conversation between two friends.
Yes.
If you haven't yet watched the Social Dilemma documentary on Netflix, The Social Dilemma.
Can I just tell you, I'm afraid to watch this. I haven't watched it, and it's because I'm just afraid I'm going to throw my cell phone in the toilet.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It definitely does make you want to go off grid.
Yeah.
I feel that way. And what's interesting, again, I won't get into this in this spark, but this phenomenon that we all feel now of like, let me just check out, let me buy 10 acres somewhere or 100 acres or whatever.
Yeah.
And check out that. She catalogs the history of that desire over decades from like the 60s, the communes and the people who were like, let's go make a utopia. Let's make an environment. And that's a fascinating chapter in and of itself. But The Social Dilemma, this documentary, this film explores the ways in which technology and social media are becoming more addictive by design every year. They interview many of the designers themselves from Google, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Every one of them admits that the entire system is designed to capture our attention so that they can sell it to advertisers.
And that's the attention economy.
Our attention is the product that they are selling. And I want you to think about that for a moment. When you are watching an ad on YouTube, you think that the product is what's being sold. Incorrect. Your attention is being sold to a company. A company is willing to spend X number of dollars to get your attention, but someone else is getting that money, not you. The social media companies are selling your attention to the highest bidder, literally. The company that will pay the highest price for your attention is the company whose ad will run right before your eyes on your video screen. I really hope that concept like sinks in for everyone listening. Your attention has so much value that companies are in bidding wars for it. And we're giving it away for free. And many times we're giving it away mindlessly, just in robotic reactionary mode. It's priceless. I mean, chapter 1 of this book changed my life because I was like, oh my God, my attention is one of the most valuable things I have. And I have not been conscious of where I've been putting it. I just have spent far too much time just allowing it to just go where it goes. The one thing that they say in the documentary is, one of the things is, if you're not paying for the product, then you are the product. So if you've ever wondered why you can enjoy all the benefits of social media, like what Facebook is free, Twitter is free, Instagram is free, well, that is why. A professor who was interviewed for the film named Shoshana Zuboff coined the phrase surveillance capitalism, to name the system that profits from the selling of personal data gathered from the monitoring of the internet.
Oh.
The former executive of Twitter, Jeff Seibert, explains in the documentary, Suze, brace yourself. I know I know you've heard this before, but the former executive of Twitter tells us this: every single action you take is carefully monitored and recorded.
Oh.
Exactly what image you stop and look at, for how long you look at it, all of it is recorded. The artificial intelligence takes notes of every single thing you like, dislike. It tracks the info and specifically continues to provide you with similar content so that it will keep your attention. So everything that you liked for a political candidate or a concept or an idea, it will keep sending you similar information over and over again to keep you engaged. And the movie explains how YouTube is designed to draw you into a rabbit hole no matter what it takes. And it will feed you darker and darker videos to keep you on the platform. Perhaps we'll do another Spark on that one alone.
What do you mean by darker and darker?
These conspiracy theories that are happening now, It might have started, you might have watched a video about the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. And then it feeds you information on some of the groups that might have been there. And then it feeds you information on one of the theories that group is working on. Everything from the, like the Pizzagate type of theories, the pedophilia theories,
So whatever your particular rabbit hole is, it's serving things up that are maybe like stickier, and the way that they're tell me if I'm wrong. The way that they're stickier is that they're more salacious, or they're more. We just recently watched Bombshell about like that whole scandal at Fox.
What happened at Fox? Yeah,
yeah, and they did that thing where they were like titillate and then scare, and then titillate and then scare, and titillate and then scare. Is it that sort of formula?
That's exactly it.
Got it. Okay.
And so when I say darker and darker, I think you're right. It's like more seductive and just one step further down whatever hole it is. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't mean this just on the right or the left. It's whatever hole, because all they care about is keeping you on the platform. And one of the designers from YouTube left the documentary with this piece of advice. They were like, what advice would you give? And he said, never, never, never click on suggested video from YouTube. Never do it. Always choose intentionally what you are looking for, find it, view it, and then get off. Or,
really?
He's like, just don't click on the suggested videos.
Do not engage with the AI.
Do not engage with the AI. Its purpose is it's just one purpose. So, this, suffice to say, all of it is intentional. So if you are, I don't know, if you're just ever feeling like, God, I don't know why I just spent 2 hours scrolling. What just happened? It's intentional. That is not, it's not you. It's not your willpower. It's not a flaw in that you just lost time somehow. It's intentional. And this documentary encourages people to limit their screen time. They suggest that you turn off notifications and have the awareness of how it all works, because then you can start to understand that nothing is showing up by chance. The ads are there for a reason. The video suggestions are there for a reason. And if they could, they would keep you online and on their platform 24 hours a day.
Ugh.
Think of it. They would make so much money off of you,
Black Mirror,
and your attention.
Oh my God. It's so scary.
And when you think about, of course, again, looking out at the deer in your beautiful yard makes no one any profit.
Yeah.
It only brings perhaps a peaceful moment of connection between you and nature. But no one is going to encourage you to be spending your time that way because they can't profit from it.
Yep.
So you have to be first conscious of it, and then we have to demand that that is how we spend our time anyway. So both the movie, The Social Dilemma, and the book, How to Do Nothing, point out that the very people who created these platforms severely limit their own children's use of technology because they know. Because they know. Many of them have expressed great regret about having designed certain things like the pull to refresh on Twitter or the like button on Facebook, but they're now powerless to do anything about it. So again, I go back to How to Do Nothing. We do have the power to determine where we put our attention, and we can learn how to use our attention in powerful ways. Odell talks about the musician and composer Pauline Oliveros. Pauline was classically trained, teaching at UC San Diego in the 1970s. She began developing participatory group techniques, such as performances where people listened and improvised responses to each other, and the ambient sound environment as a way of working with sound that could bring some inner peace to people who, at the time, were struggling during the Vietnam War. She talked about deep listening as one of her techniques. Pauline said, "To hear is the physical means that enables perception. To listen is to give attention to what is perceived both acoustically and psychologically." The goal and the reward of deep listening was a heightened sense of receptivity and a reversal of our usual cultural training, which teaches us to quickly analyze and judge more than simply observe. Odell is a bird watcher, and she tells a funny story about how she had been bird watching for a while, but she really thinks it should be called bird listening, or better yet, bird noticing, because what this practice has in common with deep listening is that observing birds really requires you to quite literally do nothing. You can't really look for birds. The most you can do is walk quietly and wait until you hear something, and then stand motionless under a tree using your animal senses to figure out where and what it is. It is this more full use of our senses that I find to be so exciting and full of potential and value, even if it's not monetary. Odell says, with effort, we can become attuned to things, able to pick up and then hopefully differentiate finer and finer frequencies each time. Suze, did you see the article this week that came out about humans having way more than 5 senses?
No.
I was so exhilarated by this because I think we talked about this idea on the episode where we talked about the documentary My Octopus Teacher. Oh. And I'm so fascinated with the idea that we have more senses than we're aware of. And it is true. This article came out this week in the British Psychological Society, and it describes a bunch more senses. And I'm just going to name a few. But here are a few senses we have. Proprioception, which is how we can sense our body parts in space. Like if you close your eyes and you put your left arm out, you know exactly where in space your arm is. That's proprioception. And we have vestibular senses, which give us a sense of the direction of gravity, like which way is up. So when you're in an elevator or on a roller coaster, you have a sense of which way is up. Light detection, we have senses that help us to subconsciously understand the passing of time due to changes in light that we're not even thinking about. Temperature, we have receptors in our skin that register temperatures, and warmth sensors that can help us feel less lonely and literally feel warmer towards other people. There's more, but I connect this to what Odell is saying, that for us to be aware of and noticing all of the incredible senses that we have, we need to stop and do nothing. we need to allow ourselves to observe what is happening around us and what is happening within us. We have to take back our attention. Which leads me to Julia Cameron's The Listening Path, the creative art of attention. Have you dug into this yet, Suze?
No. Tell me more.
Suze, listen, I'm not done with it yet, so I may circle back and do another spark on that.
Sure.
But most creative people are familiar with Julia Cameron's The Artist Way. And of course, like since that book was published 30 years ago, she's written more than 40 books since then. But The Listening Path is her latest. And of course, I was drawn to it because of my newfound passion for regaining control over my own attention.
Yes.
Like I said, I think this spark will be a spark. I mean, this book will be a spark all its own, but the overall idea is that it is a 6-week journey, much like The Artist's Way. I think that's a 12-week journey, but this is a 6-week journey, and Cameron leads us through listening on 6 levels: listening to the environment, listening to others, listening to a higher self, listening to what she calls beyond the veil, which is to loved ones who have died, listening to heroes we wish we'd met, and finally, listening to silence. In an article in the Financial Times, Julia Cameron says, I think that when we listen, we actually are tuning into a higher part of ourselves. And on WBUR, she said, listening is how we build intimate connections with each other across our differences. Deeper listening will lead us to more informed choices. Reach within. Reach within. You're going to discover a greater level of strength, courage, compassion, and bravery than you may have felt you ever had. So, Suze, what do we make of all of this? Well, number one. Yeah,
number one.
You go.
I think I need to just like nut up and watch The Social Dilemma. And again, it brings me back to this thing where I'm like, I just want to get social media out of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, of course, by design, they've made it so we need it to a degree in terms of like business.
It's funny, like for business and stuff like that. I was reading a different book this past week, and it was a business book because, we like to read some business books. And they were saying like, don't mess with it. Like, don't mess with social media. You don't need this. You don't need it. And if you are doing good work, your calendar will be full of business. And I was like, I'm interested in that experiment. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well,
I don't know.
I wouldn't cry, but I was leaning more towards, I mean, I wouldn't say neither of us use it extensively. Let's be honest. You can see by our page, but we do try to keep people informed of the big news. And, as of late, we've been trying to share out our client success stories because that's probably the biggest thing that I'm most excited about sharing on social.
Totally.
Be like, what our clients are doing and how they're succeeding. Yeah. So like, I like that, but I'm also like, let me not spend more, than 15 to 30 minutes on this thing each day. And that's how I feel about that. I think the biggest takeaways for me are just this knowledge that we are each in control of our attention. It's entirely in our power to make a more conscious practice of choosing who or what we give our attention to. So I might sit around fantasizing about how people lived in the 1800s and wouldn't it be great to like listen to classical music and read aloud? Well, shit, why don't I turn on classical music more often and sit and listen to it or read out loud. Like, that's entirely up to me to do it. The reason it's never like pulling at me is because, again, it's not part of the structure system where someone has something to gain from it. No one has anything to gain from me turning my phone off, turning the TV off, and me just listening to a record that my dad bought, 60 years ago.
Right.
So, just kind of understanding like those things are connected. Those things are connected. So I say we make a habit of giving our attention to those people and those practices that make us feel good, that bring us joy. And we make a habit of giving our attention to the activities that expand our feeling of being alive, of being present, of being truly connected to other human beings and this planet Earth we live on. And dare I say, we deny giving our attention to those things that are not serving us. Choose when we give our attention to corporations and know that it is their privilege to have it. Yes, I'll give you 30 minutes of my time, and that is it. Let us live with intention. Mary Oliver said, to pay attention. That is our endless and proper work. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi said, whatever we put our attention on will grow stronger in our life. Jose Ortega said, tell me to what you pay attention and I will tell you who you are. And let's not forget the popular saying, where attention goes, energy flows. So let's make a commitment to ourselves to become more conscious of where we gift our energy and get it flowing in the right direction. That is the spark.
That is a hell of a spark. We have to,
Thanks,
we're not going to have it on mic. We're not going to have this discussion on mic, but I think that you and I need to have a serious discussion about where we do want to give our attention and where we don't.
Yeah.
And it might mean making or doing a scary experiment that we're sort of like, ooh, cross our fingers. We don't know how this is going to go, but I don't know.
Yeah, Suze, I'd love to have that conversation. I am too. I think we spend so much. We're also well trained, both of us, in having been in corporate or administration / office work. I think we're also well trained to be like, you must respond to everything that crosses your desk. Why?
Yep.
Why?
I remember you telling me, and it might have even been on the podcast, you telling me that you felt this imperative to refresh your Instagram timeline and make sure that you were completely caught up. And then you were like,
the news.
Done.
Yeah, it was the news feed because I have Apple News.
Yeah.
And sometimes like that is more, I'll go to that more than social media. Because sometimes social media, I'll be honest, sometimes it makes me just feel bad. Yeah. And so I'll do maybe I'll be reading LinkedIn or I'll be reading the news feed. And the newsfeed does the same thing. It's like what Meghan Markle wore is as important as, what's happening at the border. And they're just going to keep throwing things at me to make sure I just stay and let me just read just one more thing about Brad Pitt, just real quick. And and then I'll go ahead and catch up on what's happening with Harvey Weinstein. It's just like, what?
Yeah.
What is this?
Fuck this shit. It makes me, you know what? It's sort of like, I feel so played. Yes. I do. I feel played by it. And it makes me very, very oppositional defiant, where I'm just like, fuck all you all. And I don't want to feel played by it.
I don't want to feel played by it. And I don't want to feel like this is how we have to live our lives. I don't believe it is. And I think maybe I'll do maybe there's a follow-up spark in examples of people who are not living their life that way and who are doing great and, have found a workaround. Because Jenny Odell is very clear in this book. She's like, I'm not suggesting that we all check out. In fact, that's what that whole chapter is about. Let me tell you what happened when everyone tried to check out in the 60s and go create utopias. it didn't quite work out the way they had imagined and for a lot of reasons. And it's all of that is really, really interesting. So she's like, you don't need to check out. And I'm not suggesting that you do, but to regain your power and your ability to your autonomy and your sense of agency, you get to decide. You do not have to just reach your hand out in the morning and pick up that phone before you even get out of bed and start scrolling. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
You can very intentionally say, I'm going to catch up on my phone stuff, during my lunch break today. If it brings you pleasure. And if it doesn't, fuck it.
I think this is interesting about, in so many ways, like how we want to use our attention and our time and how we don't, and not to be tricked into being scared that if we decide we don't want to use our attention and our time in this way, that it's going to be ruinous. It's just going to be ruinous.
It's going to happen.
We can't be successful. Yeah. I think of friends that I know who are not active on social media and who are living like very rich, satisfying, successful lives. And I'm like, they're onto something.
Last week about Sir Richard Eyre.
Yeah.
And he's 75, is writing a play, but he was also telling us all about like going on long walks with his dog, the garden that he's cultivated during the pandemic, time with his grandchildren, squeezed in between like, I'm directing these films and I think I may publish another book of poetry. And it sounds to me like a very fulfilling life, creatively and otherwise. And I don't think he's on social media. I don't think he's, allowing corporations to suck his energy.
Yeah. And I think Richard Eyre, people might go, yeah, but he's 77. And then I think of Jonathan Groff. Jonathan Groff never got on social media. He's like, F that S. Yeah. And he's so doing smart. Just fine. He's doing just fine.
Doing just fine.
He also does a thing that is one of the most brilliant things.
What's that?
After he reads an email and it's whatever business has transpired or whatever the interaction is done, he deletes it. He's like, if it needs to come back to me, it'll come back to me. He is like very lean with the all of that engagement. And I'm like, you're a genius.
Genius. Also know him to be someone who enjoys his time outdoors, the farm, going for runs, in the country, and I don't know him as well as you do, but definitely get that sense that it's a well-rounded life he's living.
Yeah. So I need to watch The Social Dilemma. I've been really nervous about doing it because I think it's going to make me even more resistant. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing. And maybe
knowledge is power.
And maybe it leads to more happiness, like genuine happiness, not this filler bullshit.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Not happiness because like, oh my gosh, look at how many likes we got.
Oh,
look at this or that. No, it's like genuine, deep.
This is going to be interesting
fulfillment.
To see what comes of this because I think something's brewing. I think something's brewing.
This might be a bifurcation point. We're like, before that spark, our life was like this. And after that spark, well, I'm telling you, I read chapter 1 of this book last summer. Then I got busy with things and I didn't finish the rest of the book until about a month ago. But the first chapter alone was life-changing for me. It simply was like, I'm going to turn my phone over. I'm just not going to look at it. It's not going to call my name every second and have me like jump up and respond to it.
Yeah. Yep.
I think I've told you this story before. My grandpa, when, telephones.
No phone. No, we're not answering.
He would just be like, just because that goddamn thing makes a noise does not mean we have to jump up from the table.
I'm with your grandpa.
Grandpa, relax. I know. Now I'm like, man, he was onto something.
He was onto something. All right. Cams.
That's me spark.
That's a good spark. Shall we take a pause and then I shall spark you in return, milady?
Oh, I appreciate you sparking me.
All right, shall we?
Yes, Suze, I just thought of something during our pee break.
What?
I was thinking about how, so that whole spark was about, the attention economy and who's profiting off of your spark. I mean, off of your attention. But when I was working on it last year and becoming more conscious of giving my attention only to things that were worthy of having it, it also relates to that upper limit problem. And when we talked about like blaming, criticizing, worrying, when you find that your mind is trying to engage you in that, that is also about where we're putting our attention and not allow and saying, yeah, I could sit here and blame whoever for whatever, but maybe more useful way to put my attention to work would be to focus on, this creative project I have in front of me, or
what
this goal.
You do want. Absolutely. I'm with you. I'm excited about it. And I also like your spark. It inspires me and it gives me sort of an angry feeling because I don't like that feeling of we've been played in the most like candy colored way the like, just like that. It's all so sweet. Look at this picture of this dog. Look at this like titillating news story. It's all clickbait. All of it is clickbait.
All of it is clickbait. It's
all of it. And we've participated in it. Like we've done, and I just see so many people like striving to be super clickable. And I admire it. On one hand, I'm like, it's good storytelling. And on the other hand, I'm like, I don't want to be in this game.
No.
Anyway.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I want to be the captain of my own ship and determine. I
want to have my hands on the wheel. I don't want to. But here's the thing. I think that they have made it so you can have the illusion of having your hands on the wheel, but it's actually one of those cars at the amusement park that's on a track.
Yes.
Or the boat in the whatever jungle voyage. And really, that boat is only going to be on that track. So
that steering wheel's just spinning.
Yeah. That steering wheel's just spinning.
Wheels. Yeah.
I'm not here for it. I'm here for being the captain of my own. Yeah. For reals.
Now, anyway, I want to know, do you still feel like your spark relates?
There is some nice, I do think that there is some nice relationship that, perhaps we'll tease out here a little bit. But, Cams, I'm excited to announce that for the first time ever in the history of the Spark File, or at least that I can remember, I am going to present you with a spark that was sparked by your spark.
You're sparking back at me?
I'm sparking back at you, sister.
Wow,
so
bring it.
Cams, I think that you delivered an instant classic spark. You just like knocked our collective socks off with your spark about the upper limit problem, which you just talked about in your spark. That upper limit problem from the book The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks was such a brain changer. Like it was so. I haven't stopped thinking about it since you shared it with us. We talk about it with our clients. Like I just thought it was so good. So thanks to you. Thanks, Gay Hendricks. Happy. Oh my gosh, I was so moved by it. In fact, that I ended up getting that book and reading it. And there was a different chapter in the book that sparked me up. And that was chapter 6, Living in Einstein Time. So
you're going to big leap back at me.
Here we go. A big leap at me, and I was like, "Oh!" And then now I'm going to big leap back at you.
Back at you.
Right back at you.
I'm here for it.
Here you go.
This is exciting.
So the source for this spark is the aforementioned Gay Hendricks book, The Big Leap, which I'm gonna tell you throughout this. I'm going to straight up read from. So, Gay Hendricks lawyers, please don't come for me, because
we
hopefully,
love your writing, Gay Hendricks.
I feel like we've already sold so many copies of this book for people that
agreed.
totally. So, I'm also going to be drawing from the Big Leap podcast, episode 4, to be precise. But Gay Hendricks, seriously, thank you for your thoughts and your work on this. It really is life-changing stuff, and we're happy to spread the good news. So, as you know, Cams, you and I have been working our little booties off to build our business and making the high-quality podcast you all are listening to right now. And just like trying to keep our floors vacuum and getting our taxes filed. And we're like, it's just been a very busy time, right?
Yes.
And happy for the most part, but totally busy as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, let's not kid ourselves. It's been really busy. And you and I have talked as recently as, I don't know, 52 minutes ago about feeling very squeezed by time. And that is what it feels like to me. Like all the commitments that I've made that I'm trying to keep and all the things that I want to do with my time and all the things that I don't want to do with my time, but they are things that are required in order to be a functioning adult in polite society. It feels like all of those things are just squeezing in on me sometimes, and I feel squoze by time pressure. And I also have this sensation where it feels like no matter how hard I gallop, I can't quite keep up with all the things that I want to do and need to do. And it makes me feel like I'm failing at life most of the time. Cammie, and does this ring any bells for you? Setting you up.
I feel it.
Are you feeling it today?
I'm okay in this exact moment, but I would say I was feeling it as recently as, Saturday.
Yeah.
Which is not really a day that you think you should be feeling that, but feel it usually all the way through the weekend.
Yeah. Through the weekend, the resting time.
Through the weekend. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. The squeeze. I feel squozed.
Yeah. I've also, you and I talk about this. We feel the squeezing and the squozing. And further, I feel like, I'll speak for myself, I feel like I've been living with this sensation of being squeezed by time and running as fast as I can and still drawing and still just like drowning in to-dos for as long as I can recall. And I'm talking decades.
Yes.
And I was thinking about it, and I can count on one hand the periods in my life where I didn't feel like this.
Yeah. And then I think about Brene Brown, and I think about that busyness, and I think about so have we been doing it to ourselves?
So I will say that the periods in my life that I can count on one hand where I didn't feel the time pressure, usually the way that I earned those reprieves was by working my ass off. In summary, I say all of this to just say, I think my relationship to time has been kind of fucked for a long time. And I'm not having it anymore. I'm so not having it.
Okay.
When you and I are feeling particularly squozed by time, I will sometimes quote Emily Fletcher. Take a shot. I will quote Emily Fletcher to you and say, we are time billionaires. We have an abundance of time, which I will say also feels a little fake it till you bake it to me, because I was just quoting Emily Fletcher. I didn't necessarily, have the underpinnings in place. But I think it's because I wasn't really ready until now to fully take in this spark that I'm going to share with you, Laura, and all y'all. But to vote one vote for Brene Brown, I think I've been addicted to this busyness for so long and its numbing properties that I can barely remember a time before this addiction began.
I genuinely can't.
Yeah.
And I think we've also talked about those times when we're like, okay, we have some time off, meaning like a week.
Oh God.
And the first half of the week is stressing about I feel so uncomfortable about I'm supposed to be producing something and being productive and getting something done. And I just feel I don't know what to do with myself.
And now this other thing is happening where we're like, okay, we are going to not schedule stuff and we're going to sort of take some time off this week. And granted, we're still building a business and we're figuring out workflow and things like that. But we end up working all week because there's time sensitive shit that we have to get done. When I say shit, I mean work that we love to do, but still there's not like what you're talking about, like just being outside and smelling a tree or whatever you do when you're outside. Like there's
when the hell are you going to do that?
When the hell am I going to have time to smell a tree? So you get it. You get the dilemma. You get it. And maybe you all relate to it. But I read the following words from chapter 6 of Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap, available now wherever you buy your fine books. I read this and I perked up. And again, I'm straight up reading. Please enjoy. Before I figured out how time actually works, I put in twice as many hours and got half as much done. My conception of time was so skewed that I felt either rushed, not enough time, or bored, too much of it. Most of the time I felt rushed, as if there was never enough time and it was constantly slipping away from me. I never got all the things done I needed to do, even though I felt like I was working overtime. Everything changed when I figured out the secret of Einstein time. Now I work half as much and get at least twice as much done. Even though I understand the science behind that shift, it still seems like a miracle to me. It works so well, it may seem like magic, but it's based on solid science inspired by Einstein's physics. Camion, I read that and I was like, sign me up. Tell me more.
Science says? Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Inform me.
Okay. Before I go any further about what Einstein time is and why Gay Hendricks claims it to be so pleasant and effective, I think I need to explain what the alternative is. The alternative is Newtonian time. Not that it's either or, but in Hendricks' view.
Newtonian?
That's right. Like Newton, like an apple fall from a tree and bonk me on the head. And I was like, hey, gravity. Newton. Okay. Isaac was his first name.
Okay.
So this is from, again, these are Gay's words here.
Got it.
The Newtonian view says there's only a finite amount of time and it must be carefully portioned out so there will be enough of it to do the things we need to do. The Newtonian paradigm assumes that there's a scarcity of time, which leads to an uncomfortable feeling of time urgency inside us. While the Newtonian view is where most of us start, it is not how time actually works. Newtonian time scarcity is just a stage we're passing through, just as Newtonian physics was a stage we passed through on the way to Einstein's breakthrough.
What?
The Newtonian paradigm guarantees that you will always have a problem with time. You'll either have too little of it or too much. You'll be rushing to catch up or bored out of your wits. In the Newtonian world, we're either running out of time or watching the seconds creep by. Think of how many times in your life you've heard someone say, I have exactly the right amount of time to enjoy everything I'm doing. I don't believe I've ever heard anybody say anything like that. Most people seem to live at the two extremes of the time continuum, rushing to stay ahead of the clock because they're busy, or virtually brain dead with boredom because they don't have enough to do. So that is Gay Hendricks writing about the distinction of Newtonian time.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, that feels, there's not a lot of time in my life where I have experienced boredom, but I actually have a theory about that. But and Gay Hendricks says in the book that he's definitely would rather feel like busy and rushed than feel bored.
Yeah.
But to Brene Brown's point, I do think that being busy, I probably put this into place in high school where I think you were similar. Like we were the president and everything. We were the cheerleading squad and we were just like incredibly socially active.
Don't forget speech and debate.
Don't forget it. Like we would leave the house very early in the morning. We'd get back very late at night. And I know that for me, I think that was a way for me to stay really busy and to not have to deal with some of the pain that I might have been feeling at home
100%.
or with all of it. So I think that was a little bit of like leaning into that Newtonian paradigm was a little bit of a numbing out and a coping mechanism, but it was rewarded because we were so productive.
Yeah, I was going to, So to touch back on the attention economy, productivity. So while we might have learned it when we were younger to escape, some shit that was happening in our home lives perhaps. But then once you get into the workplace, we were mightily rewarded for this.
Oh my God.
I mean, were we not like just the gods? Like the first job I ever had, they like within 3 weeks, they were like, you should be management, and like moving me up. And it's like, oh, just more work. More work. And I was like, this all feels right.
Your reward is more work. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You know what else this brought to mind for me is people's responses to the pandemic. I think people went straight into their coping mechanisms in response to a global pandemic and were either, I finished Netflix or I built an empire, right? I mean, I feel like everybody we know sort of bucketed into one of those.
Yes. And what aspect of this can I control and,
yes,
spin and kind of spin on, frankly, because we don't know how to take our attention and put it elsewhere.
Yeah. So this relates directly to Hendrik's point about personas. Hendricks writes, part of our problem with time is related to the persona we have. A persona is a pattern of actions and feelings that came into being at a certain time in our lives in response to certain conditions. And most of us probably don't realize that the persona we're wearing is actually a persona. Now, he uses the word persona. I might say coping mechanism, but I think it's kind of the same thing. He goes on, most of us adopt a persona in regard to time, and then we forget it's a persona. We lose sight of the fact that we can take it on and off. It becomes ingrained and semi-permanent. 2 examples of time personas: time cop, who gets there on time and reminds others to do the same. The time cop gets frustrated because people don't show up on time and gets particularly furious with those folks at the other end of the spectrum, the time slackers. If you wear the time slacker persona, you're always getting hassled for being late or not showing up at all. If you're a time cop, you're often hassling people for not keeping their time agreements. And I can also sort people in my life, generally speaking, into those buckets. I'm a time cop. You're a time cop. Steve Pasquale, if you're listening to this, you're a time cop. Like
I have a tiny wrench to throw into it. Tiny wrench.
Wrench it.
And that is, I was late to everything, but that is because I overbooked myself and attempted to do everything. And so I was not a slacker in any way. But damn it, if I wasn't making people mad because you were constantly waiting on me, because I was just so busy and important. But really, I had just tried to cram 12 things into way too small amount of time.
Oh my gosh. I remember sitting at, I think that we've met to see many a show. An 8:00 curtain, and just being like, okay, Cammie, and I'm going in. I'm leaving your ticket at the box office. I'm going to go in.
Always
and
rushing.
You fucking sliding in right at the last second. Like,
always.
That makes sense. I like your wrinkle.
But I was never accused of being a slacker, but some sort of combination of that. So you're like, well, yeah. Not cool though. Not cool.
Well, probably not great for your heart either. I'm just going to say.
Word.
Stressful. So Gay Hendricks goes on. At the heart of the Newtonian time crunch is a dualistic split. We are deluded into thinking that time is out there, an actual physical entity that can put pressure on us in here. To the point I was just making to you. As Meyer Friedman, MD, pointed out in his classic book, Type A Behavior and Your Heart, typical heart patients have a marked sense of time urgency. They're in a race with time, and their hearts show the wear and tear of it. Later, Gay Hendricks says, notice what time pressure feels like in your body. What does being in a hurry feel like? What does the sluggish side of the time continuum, the sensation most people call boredom, feel like to you? And Cammie, when I think of you in those days, of you like getting there and just sliding into the seat like at the last minute and just being like, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh God. Like the stress.
And then the shame,
stress,
and the, apology and shame, and like the triple arrows of it all.
Oh, God, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That takes its toll. I think that takes its toll when it's happening day after day after day after day after day as the norm.
Absolutely. And you couldn't have convinced me at that time that that was not the very definition of living my fullest life.
I'm sure. Yes. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Because also you're getting a big chemical rush. That's a lot of adrenaline. That's a lot of like thrilled chemicals in the body. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, Gay says, Newtonian dualism pits us against time. In this paradigm, we think of time as the master and us as its slave. At the extreme, time becomes our persecutor and we think of ourselves as its victim. Since time feels like an ever-present entity hovering in the background of our lives, we come to feel we're victims of an entity that's always there, all the time. Such a view is dangerous to our health, disastrous for our business, and ruinous to our relationships with family and friends. There's that shame, there's the apologies, there's the triple arrow.
Yes.
That's why I urge you to adopt Einstein Time. Not only is it a new paradigm, it can literally be a lifesaver. On Gay Hendricks' podcast, he talks about people who are like, I don't have time, I'm so busy. He's like, you have a mental illness.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Because like I said, like you couldn't have convinced me. You could not have convinced me at that time in my life that this wasn't what it was all about. You know, being, like I said, busy and important and needed and vital, and also fitting in, you know, Broadway shows and travel and like, no. Yeah. I'm really into this spark, Suze. I actually think we started talking about it. And then before you read this chapter, I think we started to be like, wait a minute. Well, let's recognize what it feels like to do things we love at a pace that works for us.
Sustainable.
And wow, it feels very different. And it takes constant reminding of like, oh no, this is what this feels like. And this is good. Yeah.
Well, I think with left unchecked, I think you and I easily slip back into that gear that may have been more workable when we were younger, frankly. But as I age, I'm not fucking interested anymore. But it's so habituated now. I think we have to be so diligent.
Yeah.
If we want to make a change, we're going to have to be really, really vigilant. I'm reading all this and I'm like, okay, Gay Hendricks, you've got my attention. Please unpack this. But he goes on. He says, there is no evidence that the pace of life will become slower in the future. I read that and I was like, yeah, there is no evidence that the pace of life will become slower in the future. He says, we need to organize our time and energy, but the existing systems of time management are useful only up to a point and with certain types of people. For most of us, and especially creative people, Einstein Time delivers a unique set of benefits. It's simple to understand, easy to implement, and so useful, you'll wonder how you ever did without it. And I'm like, Gay, you're killing me. Tell me.
Tell me the answer.
Here we go. Gay says, now I invite you to make the bold move of changing to Einstein Time. If you're using any time management system, put it in a drawer and don't look at it again. And I think what he means is like Covey planners and all of that, sort of like how to hypercharge your time, all of those systems.
Before 5 a.m.
He says, in reality, you probably haven't been using it anyway. Einstein Time is a new kind of time management that reorganizes your conception of time at the very core. It doesn't take any time to use it. In fact, it generates time while also producing abundant rewards in creativity, feelings of ease, and financial well-being.
I was like, those are some said creativity.
That's right. You know what you like. You know what you like.
I got excited.
This new way of being with time delivers 4 main benefits, and here they are. You get more done in less time. You enjoy plenty of time and abundant energy for your most important creative activities. You discover your unique abilities and how to express them, and you feel good inside. And I was just like, Gay, enough. Take me with you. But he goes on, when you make the shift to Einstein time, you experience a major surge in your productivity, creativity, and enjoyment. The shift takes place the moment you embrace one profoundly simple truth. You ready, Camian?
What is it?
You are where time comes from.
What?
Once you understand that you are where time comes from, you have the power to make as much of it as you want. You're the boss. I know that might sound strange, but I promise you that this is the way time actually works. I'm straight up reading from Gay Hendricks. Please enjoy. When we switch to Einstein time, I know. Hang with me. When we switch to Einstein time, we embrace this liberating insight. Since I am the producer of time, I can make as much of it as I need. We are no longer in an us versus them relationship with time. We are the source of time. And by realizing that fact, we become the truth of it. To get to this new expanded version of time offered by Einstein, we also need to make a few changes in how we think about space. When we're running on Einstein time, our experience of time changes because we make a fundamental change in how much space we are willing to occupy. By learning to occupy space in a new way, we actually gain the ability to generate more time. And then Gay Hendricks cites Einstein's explanation of relativity. And I don't know if you've ever heard this, Camian, but Einstein talks about how an hour with your beloved feels like a minute, and a minute on a hot stove feels like an hour.
Oh,
have you ever heard that before?
Yes.
So this example, according to Gay Hendricks, has everything you need to know to understand Einstein time and its powerful positive ramifications for how we live our lives. But it also has to do with how we take up space. So it's funny, I read this and listened to this chapter over and over and over again. And it started to click together. But I don't know. Maybe I'll explain it so clearly that you all will get it right away. But it took me a few passes. But back to Gay Hendricks. So let's say you notice that your belly muscles are particularly tight on a given morning. And I don't know about you, Camian, but usually mine are tight when there's some sort of ticking clock. When I'm like, there's some time sensitive thing, or there's something heightened, like usually that's when that tightness occurs for me.
Yeah.
You're busy though, so you don't stop to find out why your stomach's so tight. In other words, you choose not to occupy the space of your tense belly by shining the light of awareness on it. You ignore it and you hurry on. This is a costly moment though, because by choosing not to become aware of why your belly muscles are so tight, you sentence yourself to a day-long battle with time. So this is that relationship between time and space. More on that connection in just a moment. More on that connection between time and taking up space in just a moment. Gay Hendricks goes on. It takes practice and keen awareness to master this concept. You must quit thinking that time is out there. Take ownership of time, acknowledge that you are where it comes from, and it will stop owning you. Claim time as yours, and it will release its claim on you. The best way Hendricks has found to do this is to become nimble at making specific statements or asking specific questions that allow one to seize the controls of their time and their life. Statements like, I acknowledge that I am the source of time, or I'm where time comes from. Or to generate an abundance of time, you can ask yourself, and it took me a minute to wrap my mind around these. Where in my life am I not taking full ownership? What am I trying to disown? What aspect of my life do I need to take full ownership of? Camian, when I ask you those questions, at first I will say I couldn't get the relationship between I'm where time comes from and where in my life am I not taking full ownership? But I got there. But first, let me ask you, when you hear that, what aspect of my life do I need to take full ownership of? Does anything come to your mind?
Well, that I am stressing myself out came to mind. But I was also in the midst of like, now I was going to say, now wait, Suze, back it up, because you jumped from I am the source of time to where in my life, and I was like, no, I must be missing something.
Nope, you're not missing it. I had to read it over and over and over again. And I still, like, maybe I'm not fully understanding it, but I'm starting to get it, I think.
Yeah.
So when I'm like, what aspect of my life do I need to take full ownership of? Usually it's things that I am resisting / procrastinating on. It still has a relationship to time. It's usually things that I'm just like, that I'm resisting for some reason. Let's say preparing my taxes. Like, I'm just like, what am I not taking full ownership of? That drawer full of receipts and the ticking clock associated with it. Just as an example.
Yes. So I think that is where I was sort of with, that I am responsible for stressing myself out, because there's that, what you just described, like things that I do have to do. And probably once I finally do them, it's going to take like an hour instead of my imagining it's going to take 3 weeks.
You're hot on the, you're getting warmer.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
I also am like, there's things that I don't have to do, frankly, that I think we're trained to be like, I have to respond to all these things. I have to do these things. In actuality,
we were just talking about that in your Spark. You don't have to read all the way through your Apple News feed. No, but you don't have to.
I don't.
Yes, that's right. You can make a different choice.
And even some things in regard to work, like I don't have to do. Some of these things are nice to do, might possibly do, but they are not like must do and must do now and must do today. I'm making that. So I've made that up. Interesting.
So here's the principle behind the questions of where in my life am I not taking full ownership? What am I trying to disown? What aspect of my life do I need to take full ownership of? Gay Hendricks writes, if there is any part of ourselves or our lives that we're not fully willing to accept and take ownership of, we will experience stress and friction in that area. The stress will disappear the moment we accept that part and claim ownership of it. At that moment, the disowned part of us is embraced into the wholeness of ourselves, and from that place of wholeness, miracles are born. Which I think is to say, I'm going to cut through the stress and conflict caused by the resistance and lean directly into taking responsibility and ownership for the things in my life. So to me, just to reflect what you just said, this speaks to cutting straight through procrastination, which this is not in the Hendricks book. This is just my own thought on this. And it's not a full thought, but it's getting there. To me, procrastination is this crazy time dance that lives at the intersection of having too much to do, feeling time pressure, and yearning to be bored. That's what procrastination feels like to me. It's like I'm so crushed by time. I'm so compressed by time and yearning at the same time to be bored. So it's like almost like two ends of that continuum of like, I'm racing and I'm yearning to be bored. And so I'm sort of just living in this weird stress resistance place. That's what procrastination feels like to me.
That's interesting. Yeah. I don't feel like I'm yearning to be bored, but I do often feel I'm yearning to be free, meaning like I'm yearning to see a block of time where I get to choose whatever I want to do with it.
That's that revenge bedtime procrastination.
That's exactly it. Like I'm going to stay, I'm going to claim these 3 hours, even if it's in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And, I definitely feel that. And I think for me, it's that like take responsibility that, you know, my life has gotten significantly better once I realized like I actually don't have to go to everything I'm invited to go to. I don't have to, you know, like that shifted my life. But I spent many, many years and still have friends who do it like, oh, I have to go to this thing. I'm like, but you don't really have to. you
can I
pass.
just go on a side tangent off of this?
Yeah.
Can I just take a little exit ramp for just a second?
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to the podcast. There's a podcast by a master coach named Brooke Castillo. Some of you may or may not be familiar with her work. And she did this whole episode on she got divorced. And people, because the way that she podcasts and teaches and talks about her life, people feel they know her and the characters in her life because she uses them in her teaching and her coaching.
Yeah.
And she got a divorce. And people were like, why? What's the story? Was there an affair? Was there this? Was there that? And she's like, I'm going to just do this standalone episode on this because people want to know why. And they're looking for some story. But there was no infidelity. There was nothing like that. I got a divorce because I wanted to. And that is a full thought. That is a complete statement.
That's it.
I got a divorce. I still love my ex-husband. We still have we had a great relationship and we still do. I got a divorce because I wanted to. I didn't go to what I was invited to because I didn't want to. And I'm telling you, Camian, it connects directly back to your spark and the attention economy and all of these distinctions you and I have been getting at about how do we want to use our time? How do we not want to use our time? And I will tell you, and maybe this is just me getting older and more ornery, but my opinions about it are getting stronger and stronger. And some of them may seem counterintuitive to our business success or to what it's like to be like a socially appropriate person in society. But I'm sort of getting to this place where I'm like, I don't want to go because I don't want to. Thank you for the invitation, but I'm not going to go to that. Or I'm not going to do that thing that might be considered, I'm using air quotes, good for our business because I don't want to.
The number of years spent like doing things or meeting people or talking to people because like it might be potentially down the road, some magical thing might come of that. That was such a ruse. And I think when you ask the question, what am I not taking responsibility for in my life? That idea, like, I don't think it affects me as much now and certainly not during this pandemic, but those years I think of, I need to take responsibility that I am the captain of this ship and I'm not a victim of these invitations arriving and me having to go to them. I am responsible for the yes or no, the RSVP or I can cancel. I can change my mind and that is okay.
Yeah.
And once I started to give myself that freedom, I think, there are times when I struggle with it, but I have given myself a lot more freedom in that regard. And it's made a difference. But I think that's what came to mind. Yeah.
I think it does. It goes right back into this and it all is interconnected. It also reminds me of my friend, Mike Warga. You and I were just talking to Mike,
Hi, Mike.
earlier today. But Mike is one of the most creative, productive, capable people that I know because Mike takes responsibility and ownership for all different areas of his life. And one of the ways that he does this is by, there are things that we may not want to do them, but we're going to do them. We are going to file our taxes, for instance.
Yeah.
And he's the kind of person that he does the thing that he least wants to do each day. He does it first. So, for instance, he knows that he needs to snake the kitchen sink and it's going to be a fucking mess and just a hard, dirty job. He snakes the kitchen sink first. I just made that example up, but you know what I mean.
That's that Mark Twain, eat the frog, right?
Eat the frog. That's right.
Eat the frog first. Yeah. It does make you feel invincible if you do that first thing in the morning. You're like, I could do anything today. I already achieved the big thing that was like sitting there like a big fucking roadblock in the
frog.
Middle, Yeah.
Took
care of
clogged
it.
Sink.
Done.
Yeah. Yeah. So according to Hendricks, we need to do whatever it takes to get ourselves in harmony with the reality that we are the source of time. And once you're convinced you need to start acting as if it's true. And a simple way to do that is to put yourself on a radical diet, complete abstinence from complaining about time. Camion, buckle up. This is going to change your life. I've been experimenting with this for the past, I'm going to say, week and a half. And it is changing my life. I'm going to read a little bit more and then we're going to talk about it. This courageous move will take you out of the victim position in regard to time. When you stop complaining about time, you cease perpetuating the destructive myth that time is the persecutor and you are its victim. Gay says, I found this surprisingly hard when I first started the diet. Until I went on the diet, I hadn't realized how many of my conversations contained complaints about time. Notice the conversations around you this week and see how many times you hear things like, I wish I had time to stop and blank, but I'm in a hurry. Where did the time go? There simply aren't enough hours in the day. If only I'd gotten another hour of sleep. I'd love to talk, but I've got to run. I have to get to the bank. I don't have any time to do that right now. Each of those statements contains an overt or covert complaint portraying the speaker as a victim of time. It treats time as a scarce commodity, sending the message that time is out there and that there isn't enough of it in here. Each statement is a mini whimper of misery, a claim that time is the whipmaster and we're its hapless galley slaves rowing desperately to stay ahead of the lash. The moment you stop complaining about time, you free up the necessary energy to mount a similar campaign on the inner plane. You will need that energy because it is one thing to stop complaining that you are the victim of time, but it is quite another to stop feeling that you're its victim. So, Camion, I see you writhing in agony over there. What is going on?
I was just feeling like if this was a courtroom, I have been deemed guilty like in the last 12 hours. I was just thinking of things that I've said to myself, to Wes, to you, to anyone.
Please, Cams, I am so with you on this. And I'm a baby when it comes to like trying some of these principles out. Like I'm a week and a half in, so I think I'm an expert. But like I'm telling you, here's the good news. Here's the optimistic piece. It's amazing how when you start doing this, how quickly, if you're vigilant, how quickly you can catch these thoughts and make change around them. It's shocking.
Is there like a positive thought that he suggests using, like, to create a new neural pathway when I feel like saying there's no time? Instead, is there something else?
You can say it all goes back to where we started. I am the source of time.
I'm the source of time.
I am the source of time. And if I need more time, I'll make more time. It is radical. Here's one way that my sort of addiction to busyness and this repetitive negative thinking around time really, this is just one example of how it kind of has fucked me. And this has been at play for years. And you just alluded to it as well, Kimian. So we are trying to protect Sunday as a day off. We do, depending on the week. Some days we do better than others, but that's the goal. And I will get to Sunday and I'll wake up, and usually the morning I'm like, ooh, because I didn't have to wake up to an alarm. So that feels kind of good.
Yay.
And then around about 11 a.m., I start worrying that the day's going to be gone and I'm not going to get all the things I wanted to get done and the day is gone. And I will tell you, we say it around this house a lot, don't ruin Sunday worrying about Monday. I have a really hard struggle with that where I'm just sort of like already at 11 a.m. on a Sunday feeling like I failed the day.
Yeah.
And weirdly, to call back to your spark, one of the things that I'll sometimes do when I'm sort of like, I don't know which way to turn because I'm not going to be able to get it all done anyway. And time is squeezing me and it's Sunday and I shouldn't be feeling like this. So I get the double arrows. I sit my little butt down and I start scrolling social media. How's that for a 1-2 punch? How's that for a 1-2 spark?
That's a knockout. Yeah.
There you go. And she's down for the count. And so just to use Sunday as an example, when I start going to that habituated thinking where I'm like, oh God, it's already 11 a.m. and I'm never going to get to all the things that I want to do on my list. I stop, I take a breath, and I say, I am the source of time. And if I need more time, I'll make more time. And I just basically am pulling the plug on that thought, on that neural, like that little neural path that gets traveled by that little electric traveling down that neural pathway. I'm pulling the plug on it over and over and over and over again. I'm not feeding the beast anymore. I am. And this is where I think it all starts to come together for me in my understanding of this. When I have that feeling of, oh God, it's 11 o'clock and my list of the things that I wanted to do, I wanted to pot some plants and I wanted to give the dogs a bath and I wanted to vacuum. I like doing those things and I wanted to do them. And maybe I wanted to take a nap, but if I take a nap, like then I'm going to wake up and it's going to be like getting dark. Like before all of that, when those thoughts are going through my head, talk about, I'm going to do a spark about a managed mind. When those thoughts come into my head, talk about the relationship between time and space. A contracting feeling comes into my body.
Yes.
It is not a pleasant feeling. The time pressure squeeze comes into my body.
Yeah.
And the moment that I stop and breathe and say, I am the source of all time. And if I need more time, I will make more time. My body expands. It is a more expansive, spacious, flowing feeling. And that is the relationship that I think Gay Hendricks is talking about between time and space. Does that make sense?
Yes.
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 Yeah. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Lead us, Gay Hendricks.
So what I'm talking about, and I'm going to do a standalone spark on this about the managed mind and thought work, because I'm coming to believe that thought work is the key to so much with this. Tom Schulteis has that thing that he says, which is, we don't know what happens after you die. We can suspect and we can believe really hard, but we don't really know what happens. So pick the story that makes you happy and believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Pick the thought that makes you happy and believe it. So if the thought that makes you feel expansive and flowing and free is, I'm the source of time. And so if I need more time, I'm going to make more time. Then pick that thought and believe that. After I got my COVID vaccination, I had 2 nights of disrupted sleep. I wasn't feeling well and I didn't sleep well through the whole night. And typically I would start getting really worried. It's 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm not going back to sleep. I need my sleep. I have a full day tomorrow.
Yep.
I'm not going to be at my best. And this thing starts to perpetuate. I start getting wound up. The contracting feeling starts. I feel time pressure squeezing in. This happened 2 nights in a row. And I was like, I'm the source of time. If I need more time, I'll make more time.
Yes.
And I just sat up and I was like, I'm going to be awake until I get sleepy again. And the next day I was like, if I need to make the time to take a nap, then I'll make the time to take a nap.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, Camian, already I can feel a difference.
I'm excited
I can feel a difference.
About this.
Yeah. So, one particular phrase that Gay Hendricks would like you to eliminate is this common one. I don't have time to do that right now. Like many of us, you probably use it often. Based on what you've learned in this chapter, you can probably see now that's a lie. It's a lie for 2 reasons. First, time is not something that you have or don't have. You're the source of it, and you can make as much of it as you want. Second, when you say, I don't have time to do that right now, you're telling a polite lie to avoid saying, I don't want to do that right now. This goes back to my earlier point about Brooke Castillo. I got a divorce because I wanted to get a divorce. I'm saying no to that invitation because I don't want to use my time in that way.
Okay,
I don't want to.
It's
a complete thought. Yeah.
What if I have a meeting at noon and it's 11:45 and Wes asks me to run to the store. And I don't have time to get to the store and back before, practically before that. So what would you say? Just say, I have a commitment at noon, but I have time to do that after this meeting.
You can say that. I think Gay's point is by placing the blame on time, you avoid confronting the truth of the matter. And by using time as the culprit, you can place yourself in the victim position again. Instead of saying, I don't have time right now, you could maybe say, I want to finish what I'm doing before I go to the store, or I want to finish this thing I'm engaged in before I watch a movie or have lunch with you, rather than claiming to be the victim of time. It's sort of what are you taking responsibility for being like, babe, I can't use my time in that way right now because I'm engaged in something. Yeah. But yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I want to finish what I'm doing. I want to finish this commitment that I have, and then I can totally go to the store later.
I want to honor this commitment.
Yeah.
And then I'm happy to go to the store. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
This all makes so much sense, and I'm really excited to start to employ it.
I am too. And he talks in the book about after he put himself on the no complaints about time diet, he started inviting his clients to put themselves on it. And they started seeing really remarkable results too. And here are some quotes from his clients. We found ourselves getting more things done without feeling rushed. I will tell you, just in the past week and a half, I have had that feeling.
Yes.
We ended the workday feeling less fatigued. Now, this makes sense to me, Cami, because if you're not indulging that resistance, it's crazy how much energy that consumes. It really does.
It really does. And Suze, I've been working on this for a while now, and this feels like the right next tool. But one of the things that I've been working on is releasing that bodily tension around something and letting that go when I feel it, and saying, I just need to do this. I just need to write this strategic document or what have you, and just do it. And I don't actually need to get wound up on the inside about it. And of course, what I've struggled against is like this in my mind and in my body. That's what work feels like. And so when I do it without that, I'm like, oh,
yes.
Oh, so this is still me getting my work done, but without doing all of that. Yeah. Yes.
This goes back to this thing that I say to anybody who will listen, which is, what would this feel like if it were easy?
Yes.
Which is another shortcut way of saying, what if you take out the resistance piece and just flow into the thing, whatever the thing is, but remove the resistance piece. Absolutely.
I was just going to say, that's another thing that when the question of like, what am I not taking responsibility for? That's part of what I mean when I say that I'm the one who's stressing myself out. I need to take responsibility that I'm allowing that wind up inside of me. No one's doing that to me. Right.
Yes, but you may not have had another thought to replace that thought with, but now you do.
Now I do.
And that thought is, take a breath and tell yourself, I am the source of time. I am where time comes from. And if I need more of it, I'll make more of it. Yeah.
Yes.
So a few more quotes from clients. We suddenly had time to carry out leisurely conversations that we would have cut short.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, a lot of frantic activity seemed no longer necessary. Before I took responsibility for the amount of time I had at my disposal, I felt I was in an ongoing wrestling match with time. I saw time as a big, threatening pressure that was always about to overwhelm me. When I learned the real truth that I am the source of both the time and the pressure, it was like a huge weight lifted off of me. And it's true. That is exactly what it feels like. It feels like weight being lifted. And again, that is sort of the relationship between time and the amount of space that you will take up. What we are talking about is changing the thought, which changes the cascade of chemicals in the body, which changes a feeling of either contraction or expansiveness, right?
Yes. Suze, I can't help but also think about, like, I have known many a person, oftentimes male, but many a person who will show up at a meeting, take up their space, and be like, oh yeah, I don't have that done.
Yeah.
And no, the sky does not fall on them. No, like, seemingly repercussions, come at them. But it is, again, within us that we show up at a meeting and like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I'm going to have to say, I don't have this finished, or this is just a first draft, or this is all the thoughts that I only had time to put like these 3 thoughts down on paper. And that's us working ourselves up.
Yeah. But I also feel like you and I are we have, and maybe it's out of necessity, have been getting better at this over the past year, where we'll be like, I haven't had time to get to this. I've done a lot of other stuff, but not this. And we'll say to each other, that has to be okay.
That has to be okay.
It has to.
And I just think that is also about taking up space and like expanding and saying, that's all right.
I will tell you today, just like I have been playing with the balance of this. And today I was scheduled from, what time is it now? The time now is 9:30 Eastern time. I have been going since 6:30 a.m., but I did the whole day with this sense of sort of this expansive, I am the source of time feeling. And I just trusted that I was going to get all the deliverables done and that I was going to slide into the meetings on time, maybe right at time. And that's exactly what I did. I think I was a little bit late getting a deliverable out for the email, but it still got out within like a half an hour of our target deadline. And I was really pleased with the quality of it. And I was just like kind of doing that gently all day long, even though my calendar was highly scheduled today. But I took out the resistance and the drama and the stress about and the panic that I just took out. And I was just like, what would this feel like if it was easy? And that's how I did it. And I'm the source of all time. And if I need more time, I'll make more time. And it all worked out great.
Genius.
Yeah.
I love this.
So that original insight that we are the source of time, that time is not a pressure from outside, that we can make as much as we need. It takes only a split second to comprehend. However, Gay Hendricks says it takes a lot of practice to integrate that insight into the practicalities of our lives. The main thing is keen attention. Be on the lookout constantly for complaints about time that come out of your mouth or go through your mind. And as you spot them, eliminate them one by one, and you will grow steadily less busy while getting a great deal more done.
Wow.
Do you see how now this equation might actually work?
Yes.
When you remove the resistance, when you ask yourself, what am I not taking ownership of in my life? And you lean straight into it and you remove that resistance and you expand and you take up space and you meet any sort of like negative habituated thinking about time and you replace that with, I am the source of time and I'm going to make plenty of time. And in fact, I'm going to make plenty of time to master these principles.
Yeah.
You can feel now, I think, just in a short amount of time, I feel how this could change our lives, Camian.
Susan, I'm game. I'm in for it. And if you combine it with intentional, like where we put our attention.
Yes.
My God, it does seem transformational.
It's funny when this also leads to, I thought a lot about how this leads to the concept we've talked about before around radical honesty.
Yeah.
And just really being honest with ourselves about where we're not taking responsibility and ownership in our lives, and leaning straight into it, and being vigilant about the way we talk about time, and being honest and saying, I don't want to do that because I don't want to do it. And not like blaming, like I feel like I have spent a lifetime being like, I'm so busy and I can't because I'm the victim of time, and not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And just being radically honest with ourselves and others. It feels like it could potentially be life-changing.
It certainly does to me. It certainly does. I'm very excited about it.
So what do we make of it, Cams? Here's a few things I'll be making of it, and I invite you to come along for the ride. An easier, more flowing, spacious relationship with time.
Yes.
I want to say, to your point earlier about, well, what about guys that, you didn't say this, but roll into a meeting when they do, maybe they're late and they're like, yeah, I didn't have time and I'm done. And they just sort of like, oh, I will say this, I will continue to be on time, but I will not be in a fight with time, because I now know the truth. I am the source of time, so no struggle is going to be required. And I'll give you an example. I was moderating this thing, and it was like there were a lot of people around the world watching this thing on Zoom. And I knew, because the prior presenter was winding down, I felt like I was running out of time, but I had to pee before I went live again. And I was like, if I need more time, I'll make more time. And I went and I peed and I came back and my butt hit the chair and they threw it back to me. And I was like, okay, great. Like I had just enough time. If I had paused any more to go, should I not go?
Yeah.
Should I do it? Should I not do it? I wouldn't have had time. But since I was just like, I'm the source of time, it'll be fine. And it was. So I am going to, if I have 90 seconds and I have to pee before we go live on Zoom, Camion, I'm going to pee, because I'm the source of time. And if I need more time, I'll make more time. And if I have a Sunday afternoon and I don't want to while it away being tormented by forecasting about what I'm not going to get done, I am letting that go. I am making a commitment publicly that I am not doing that to myself anymore. I'm going to make a practice of identifying repetitive negative thoughts tied to time and busyness and replacing them with the expansive, flowing thought that I am the source of time. So if I need more time to do the things that I want to do or have to do, I'll simply make more time from inside of me. I will take ownership of areas in my life where I feel the stress and friction that's created by resistance. And, I have this Post-it on my computer. I've had it up there for a while now, and I've talked about it on the podcast. Create more, consume less. And what I meant when I wrote that was create more works of art and more acts of self-expression, and consume less stuff, like spend less money on stuff and consume less media and less social media and shit like that. But now, in addition to that, instead of being a consumer of time, I'm going to be a creator of time.
Oh, I like it. I like that. That's
my spark, baby.
Create more time.
Any additional thoughts? Anything else you want to say, baby Cams?
I just am really, really, really into this. I'm really into it. I love changing this entire dynamic.
I do too. I feel like you and I, Camian, have lived under that old paradigm for so fucking long, and we've been super rewarded for it. And it's the times they are changing.
Wow. Suze, I love that spark. I've written down 1,000 notes and things I'm going to put up on my wall. I am the source of time. And if I need more time,
you're the source of time.
I'll make more time.
You make more time. Yeah, I love it.
Thank you for that. I really, really love it. And they were complimentary. Quite.
They were, weren't they? We have a lot to, I feel like you and I have I feel like there's going to be some changes afoot.
I think so too, in really, really good ways.
Yeah. It'll probably extend. And speaking of time, when you take that stress and resistance out of your life, I can't help but think it's going to extend our life expectancy. No kidding.
100%, I believe it.
Yeah.
And then when you think about and again, you combine that with putting our attention on things like nature and time spent in nature, or observing nature, or listening to classical music, I have no doubt our health will be affected positively as well. 100%.
We are going to be the most rockin' old ladies. I swear to God.
Seriously.
I swear to God.
Anyone wants to join us on a nature walk, followed by sitting on the rocking chair on the front porch, you're all welcome.
Can I refill your lemonade? Anyway, we're not there yet, but we're getting there. Friends, I think that's it. This episode of The Spark File was made on Muncie, Lenape, and Seminole land. And as always, we hope this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen, if there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share that, email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We'll even take your feedback. But you know the price of admission. First, you have to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
You can follow us on social media at The Spark File, and be sure to subscribe, rate, and 5-star review this podcast. It really does help other listeners find us. Mm-hmm. Also, if you liked this podcast, we sincerely hope that you'll share it with people that you love. And if you didn't like it, use your time differently.
If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, we're writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It is your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You know, you got to take it
and make it.
Thank you, Gay Hendricks. Changing our lives.
Changing our lives.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I wanna make or how I wanna be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.